Hey guys, it's Marco again, with a weirdly timed video for my channel. I was going to sleep and my mage buddy from the guild sent me a DM that fire mages got a buff, and here we are. I hope that you will reward my devotion by buffing that like button and maybe even subscribing. So what happened to fire mages? Their set bonus has been buffed. 2-piece now increases the duration of combustion by 4 seconds up from 2 seconds. Fireball damage is increased by 20%. Fire Blast damage is increased by 10%, and lastly, Pyroblast damage has been increased by 6%. They're just increasing Fire Mage solo target damage and a bit of AoE damage, due to increased combustion duration, but that's a super small buff. Biggest buff is the Pyroblast damage increase, which is about 51% of your damage on solo targets, not counting Ignite. Majority of Ignite's damage is made by Pyroblast due to Hot Streak, making Pyroblast deal double Ignite damage. If you count in Ignite from Pyroblast and Pyroblast Dot, the damage of Pyroblast ends up at about 69% of your overall damage. Nice, I would say. So 6% damage increase to Pyroblast translates to around 4.1% buff to Fire Mage solo target damage. Fireball together with its Ignite damage deals about 5% of your overall damage on solo targets, which means that 20% buff to Fireball is exactly 1% damage buff. Lastly, we got Fire Blast 10% damage buff, and Fire Blast does about 15% of your solo target damage when you pair it with its Ignite, and that just means that we got a 1.5% overall buff from it. Just looking at these buffs, we got a 6.6% solo target buff without any borrowed power. This is just a pure fire kit damage increase without touching their AoE damage. Now with the set bonus, doubling the duration of 2-piece set doesn't make too much of a difference. This barely gives you 1% overall buff, and making it 2 seconds longer will get you, let's say, 1% more DPS. But you're already struggling with Fire Blast stacks and combustion because it's longer. This means that this is an overall buff of 7.8% on solo targets, which is actually a huge buff. My biggest issue is that this is mainly going into their kit, which will result in fire being stronger when they remove borrowed power from this expansion, in the next expansion. In my opinion, they should have just buffed the hell out of their tier set, maybe even add additional benefits on 2-piece set so they can scale properly. And when we look at Warcraft log statistics, it's really sad to see fire mages on the bottom of the chart. I usually look at 90th percentile log, but power infusion is skewing the logs big time. For example, on Skolex Mythic, 200 out of 500 top fire mages for that fight get power infusion. And top 500 fire mage is actually 76th percentile log for fire mages on this fight. So even with a bunch of power infusions, they're sitting at the bottom of the chart. Their biggest issue in this raid is not necessarily solo target damage, which was fine when you consider power infusion, but they're lacking so much cleave. Due to that reason, they will still remain in the bottom half of Warcraft logs. A lot of fights in this raid just doesn't suit them. Overall, this buff will mean that they will get quite a bit closer to Frost Mages on solo target department, but I think that Frost Mages should still be higher without the usage of power infusion by a few percent. This is mostly visible on Skolex fight. If you give Fire Mage power infusion, on average they should do more damage on solo targets than Frost Mages. But there is that thing that Frost Mages are easier to pull off than Fire Mages, and Frost Mages don't require the constant need to be power infused. Also, it's kinda funny that I usually only talk about Frost Mages and Fire Mages and as if Arcane Mages don't exist. But yeah, Blizzard isn't giving them any love. So they're not featured in this video, but they do require some buffing. Overall, I think that this is a good change and a lot of fire mages will rejoice, but sadly, mages as a whole aren't super good in the current trade, and this buff won't exactly change that. With that said, I will end this short but informative video. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.